Ladies, gentlemen, beloved, there comes a moment in your life where you realize that the applause, the approval, the validation you've been chasing won't fill the empty places in your soul. That moment, that divine interruption, is God's invitation to turn inward, to tune out the noise, and to finally say, it's time. Time to focus on me, time to love me. You see, for far too long, you've been showing up for everyone but yourself. You've been carrying their expectations, their burdens, their opinions, and somewhere along the way, you misplaced your own reflection. But I came to remind you today that your worth was never in their hands. It was written in heaven, sealed with purpose, and born with intention. This is your season to reclaim your identity, to fall in love with the person God created before the world told you who to be. It's time to pour that same energy you give to others back into your own healing, your own growth, your own peace. Because hear me, you are not selfish for focusing on yourself. You are strategic. You are sacred. You are stepping into alignment with your calling. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about what happens when you stop waiting to be chosen and choose you. When we talk about self-love, too often it's dismissed as fluff, vanity, or luxury for people who have time. But real self-love, the kind that sustains you, heals you, carries you through storms, is not a luxury. It's survival. It's oxygen for your soul in a world that's constantly trying to suffocate your identity. We live in a time where burnout is applauded, where overextension is praised, and where self-neglect is mistaken for strength. But the truth is, you cannot pour from an empty cup. You can't be everything to everyone and be nothing to yourself. Eventually, that neglect catches up. It shows up in your body, in your spirit, in your relationships, in your ability to dream. You start losing pieces of yourself just to make others whole. There's something dangerous about believing that your worth is only validated by how much you give others. Because when you constantly give without ever receiving, when you're always showing up and never sitting down to rest, when you're everybody's rock and no one's refuge, you begin to erode. You begin to believe that your exhaustion is a sign of value. You wear burnout like a badge of honor, thinking if I'm tired, I must be doing something right. But what if your tiredness is the Holy Spirit whispering, daughter, come back to yourself? What if it's a sign that you've drifted too far from your own soul, that you've made a home in places that were never meant to house your worth? Real self-love is not bubble baths and spa days, though those are beautiful and valid too. Real self-love is the courageous decision to stop abandoning yourself. It's deciding that your voice matters, even when it shakes. It's standing in front of the mirror and forgiving the version of you that didn't know better. It's protecting your peace, not out of arrogance, but out of reverence. Reverence for the temple that God has called you to steward. Reverence for the gift that you are. Because hear me, you are a gift. Not because of what you do for others. Not because of your titles, your performance, or your productivity. But simply because you are here, breathing, existing, called. That is enough. Self-love is not selfish. That lie has held too many women hostage. It's been whispered to people who dared to rest, who dared to say no, who dared to leave toxic situations. But the truth is, loving yourself is often the most generous thing you can do. Because when you are full, when you are grounded, when you are healed, you don't project your pain, you pour out love. You don't bleed on people who didn't cut you. You don't search for validation in people who aren't qualified to give it. You stop operating from lack and start living from abundance. Loving yourself means taking responsibility for your well-being. It means tuning in to your own needs, not out of narcissism, but out of necessity. It means noticing when your soul is hungry and refusing to starve it for the sake of appearances. It means canceling plans to sit with your journal and cry. It means saying no when you've been conditioned to say yes. It means walking away from people, places, and patterns that dim your light, no matter how familiar or comfortable they may feel. It means choosing truth over tradition, because tradition may tell you to keep the peace, but truth will tell you to make peace within. There's nothing vain about wanting to be whole. There's nothing wrong with wanting to wake up and recognize the person in the mirror. There's nothing selfish about honoring the needs of your heart. The world might not always applaud your self-love journey because the world benefits from your brokenness. A broken woman is easier to control. A broken man is easier to manipulate, but a whole self-loving soul, that person is powerful. That person sets boundaries. That person walks away from dysfunction. That person creates ripple effects of healing just by existing. We need to normalize loving ourselves as an act of resistance. In a culture that profits from your insecurity, self-love is revolutionary. It's reclaiming your narrative. It's refusing to apologize for taking up space. It's saying, I deserve kindness, not just from others, but from myself. It's catching your own negative thoughts and flipping the script. It's letting go of the need to be perfect in order to be worthy. It's embracing the truth that worthiness is your birthright, not a prize to be earned. And when you really begin to love yourself, it's not loud, it's not boastful, it's quiet and sacred. It shows up in how you speak to yourself in silence. It shows up in how you let go of things that used to torment you. It shows up in the way you breathe deeper, laugh louder, cry without shame. It shows up in the peace you protect, in the joy you no longer apologize for. Some of you have been loving others from a place of depletion. You've mastered the art of pretending to be okay. You've convinced the world that you've got it all together while crumbling behind closed doors. But God is not calling you to pretend. He's calling you to heal. And healing starts with love. Not the kind that waits to be earned or proven, but the kind that flows from knowing you are already loved by the one who formed you. When you root your self-love in divine love, it becomes unshakable. It becomes a foundation you can build on. So no, self-love is not vanity. It's not ego. It's not selfishness wrapped in a trendy phrase. It is survival. It is the anchor in your storm, the whisper that says keep going when everything else tells you to quit. It is the fire that burns off shame and guilt. It is the light that leads you back to yourself when you've wandered too far trying to please people who never saw you. And when you love yourself well, you don't shrink anymore. You expand, you evolve, you rise. You stop living to be liked and start living to be whole. And from that place of wholeness, everything changes. Boundaries are not walls built from bitterness. They are gates made from wisdom. They're not designed to keep people out. They're created to keep you intact. Boundaries are not a punishment to others. They are a form of self-respect. When you set a boundary, you are saying to yourself and to the world, I matter. My peace matters. My emotional safety matters. But so often we hesitate to draw those lines because we're afraid of being seen as cold, mean, or difficult. We're afraid we'll lose love, approval, or connection. So we keep saying yes when our soul is screaming no. We keep allowing access to people who haven't earned the right to be that close. We keep tolerating behaviors that quietly tear us apart. The truth is, boundaries expose what you believe about yourself. If you believe you're worthy, your boundaries will reflect that. If you believe you're only as valuable as what you can do for others, your boundaries will be thin, shaking off, and non-existent. Many of us were raised to think that kindness means compliance, that to be good, you must be agreeable. But being agreeable without discernment leads to resentment. You start saying yes, not from a place of love, but from a place of fear. You fear rejection, confrontation, or abandonment. So you sacrifice your needs to maintain the illusion of harmony. But that kind of harmony is fake peace. And fake peace will always cost you real joy. When you start building boundaries, it will feel unfamiliar, maybe even selfish. That's okay. Growth rarely feels comfortable at first. But listen, the people who benefit from your lack of boundaries are the ones who will complain the loudest when you finally enforce them. That doesn't mean you're wrong for setting them. It means your healing is disrupting their control. It means your wholeness is confronting their expectation. You have to get to the place where protecting your peace matters more than pleasing people. Because if you don't, you'll spend your life exhausted, emotionally bankrupt, and wondering why you feel so unseen. Boundaries are not just about saying no to others. They're about saying yes to yourself. They're about honoring your capacity. You don't have to answer every call. You don't have to explain yourself to everyone. You don't have to carry every burden. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to choose silence. You are allowed to protect your time, energy, and emotions. The people who truly love you will understand that. The people who only love your access or your usefulness will fall away. And that falling away may hurt, but it's a holy unraveling. It's a necessary separation so that you can come back to yourself. There are people in your life who have grown accustomed to your lack of boundaries. They've learned that you will always pick up, show up, clean up, fix up, even when it's breaking you. But God never asked you to be anyone's savior. He already sent one, and that burden is too heavy for you to carry. When you live without boundaries, you become a version of yourself that is constantly performing. You wear the mask of I'm fine while inside you're unraveled. You smile while silently screaming for space. But true freedom begins when you allow yourself to be honest about what you can and cannot do. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. Every time you excuse disrespect, every time you laugh off an insult, every time you say it's okay when it really isn't, you are training people to ignore your humanity. You are telling them you can cross my line because I won't enforce it. But boundaries are not just about protecting yourself from others. They are about teaching yourself how to love yourself well. They are acts of grace, not just for others, but for you too. Grace says, I love you, but I won't lose me to keep you. And listen, it's not your job to convince people to respect your boundaries. It's your job to honor them, even if others don't. The moment you stop enforcing your boundaries to keep someone else comfortable is the moment you abandon yourself. And you've done that long enough. You've dimmed your light, silenced your truth, and diluted your presence so that others wouldn't feel threatened or uncomfortable. But your shrinking has never saved a relationship. It's only delayed the reality that some people are not meant to stay close. Boundaries are a spiritual discipline. They require discernment, courage, and consistency. They require you to know who you are and whose you are. Because when you know that you are divinely made, fearfully formed, and loved without conditions, you stop begging for space in places that can't contain you. You stop shrinking to fit inside environments that were never meant to hold your calling. You stop needing external permission to say, this doesn't feel right. People will test your boundaries. They will guilt trip you, manipulate you, gaslight you. They will say things like, you've changed, or you used to be so nice, but that's okay. You're not here to be palatable. You're here to be whole. You're not here to keep everyone comfortable. You're here to live in truth. And sometimes truth makes people uncomfortable, especially people who've benefited from your silence. Boundaries are not about pushing people away. They're about drawing a sacred line between what honors your spirit and what harms it. They allow love to flourish in truth and not obligation. Because love without boundaries is not love, it's codependency. It's sacrifice without safety. It's giving without receiving. It's being loyal to dysfunction out of fear of being alone. But when you love yourself enough to set boundaries, you redefine what love means in your life. You stop mistaking chaos for passion. You stop confusing attachment for connection. You stop calling dysfunction normal. The strongest people I know are not the ones who do everything for everyone. They are the ones who know when to stop. They are the ones who say no more and mean it. They are the ones who walk away when something is no longer healthy, even if it's familiar. They are the ones who risk being misunderstood in order to be at peace with themselves. Because peace doesn't always come wrapped in comfort. It often comes wrapped in clarity, and clarity will cost you your illusions. There is power in honoring your limits. There is strength in saying, I can't do this anymore. There is freedom in realizing that not everyone has to like you for you to love yourself. There is healing in recognizing that you don't have to keep proving your worth to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. When you choose boundaries, you choose yourself. When you choose yourself, you choose healing. When you choose healing, you break generational patterns. And that kind of shift doesn't just change your life. It shifts the entire atmosphere around you. Your identity is not up for negotiation. That truth has to settle deep in your soul because the world will try to make you forget it every single day. From the time you were born, the enemy has been after your identity. Before you even knew how to spell your name, life started trying to rename you. Trauma tried to name you broken. Rejection tried to name you unworthy. Failure tried to name you not enough. People's opinions tried to name you too much. And if you're not careful, you'll start answering to names that God never gave you. You'll start shrinking yourself to fit rooms that were never designed for your spirit. You'll start bending and breaking just to keep the peace, to be liked, to be accepted. But the truth is, who you are was settled in heaven long before anyone on earth had an opinion about you. You are not your mistakes. You are not your past. You are not the worst thing you've ever done or the worst thing that's ever been done to you. That's not who you are. Those are things that happen. They are chapters in your story, but they are not your name. They are not your identity. Your identity is divine. It's holy. It's rooted in purpose. It's unshakable, even when life shakes everything else. But too many people are walking around trying to build a life on top of an identity that was never theirs to begin with. They've become masters of adaptation, masters of performing, masters of wearing masks that get applause but never give peace. You can fool people, but your soul knows the truth. And the soul always knows when it's living a lie. When you don't know who you are, you'll settle for anything that makes you feel valuable, even if it costs you your authenticity. You'll compromise your boundaries, your voice, your dreams, just to be chosen by people who wouldn't know what to do with you if they had you. You'll allow circumstances to define you instead of allowing your creator to define you. But God didn't call you to blend in. He didn't call you to fit the mold. He called you to stand out, to disrupt, to shine. He formed you with intention, and nothing about your identity is accidental. The way you think, the way you feel, the way your mind works, the way your heart holds space for people, that's all part of the blueprint. But when you start believing you have to earn your identity by performing, you disconnect from the truth that you were already enough before you even got started. You were fearfully and wonderfully made. That's not just a feel-good scripture. That's your foundation. That's your anchor. That means your value is not tied to what you can do, who you can impress, or what titles you carry. You are valuable because you exist. You are valuable because God breathed his image into you. You are valuable because your presence carries weight, even if others never acknowledge it. When you believe that, really believe it, you stop needing external validation to feel internal peace. You stop trying to convince people to see you because you already see yourself. Too many people have built their identities on shifting sand, on popularity, on applause, on comparison. They're constantly looking to others to tell them who they are, and every opinion becomes a mirror. But broken mirrors only reflect distorted images. If you're looking to broken people to tell you who you are, you'll end up living a broken version of your life. And the danger of building your identity on anything external is that when it leaves, when the job ends, when the relationship shifts, when the spotlight fades, you're left with nothing but questions. But when your identity is built on something eternal, it doesn't matter what changes around you. You remain rooted, you remain firm, you remain unshaken. You've got to stop giving people the authority to define you. They didn't create you. They don't know the conversations God had about you before you ever took your first breath. They don't know the warfare you survived, the tears you cried, the mountains you moved just to still be standing. And because they didn't pay the price, they don't get to name the product. Your identity is too precious to be shaped by temporary opinions. It's too sacred to be edited for public approval. The real you, the healed you, the growing you, the unfiltered you is exactly who the world needs. Every time you try to fit into a version of yourself that's acceptable to others but unacceptable to your soul, you reject your own identity. You tell yourself that who you are is not enough. But the lie of inadequacy is one of the most dangerous deceptions the enemy uses, because if he can get you to doubt who you are, he can keep you from walking in what you're called to do. Identity is not just about self-esteem. It's about alignment. When you know who you are, you move differently, you love differently, you choose differently. You don't settle, you don't chase, you don't compromise your voice just to be in rooms that were never built to hear you. Some of you have been negotiating your identity for acceptance. You've been silencing your truth to avoid rejection. You've been shrinking your light to make others comfortable. But what if your identity isn't the problem? What if it's their limited perspective that can't comprehend the fullness of who you are? What if the very things you've been hiding are the exact gifts that God wants to use? What if your voice, your story, your uniqueness is the key to someone else's breakthrough? The enemy hopes you never figure that out. He hopes you stay stuck trying to edit yourself into palatability. But there's a version of you that's free. A version that's no longer negotiating her worth. A version that's unapologetically aligned with heaven's design. You've got to decide who gets the final say in your life. Will it be the critics, the past, the fear, or will it be God? Because the truth is, you can't live in freedom if you're constantly allowing people who don't understand your assignment to define your identity. You can't walk in purpose if you're still waiting for approval from people who are blind to your value. You've been chosen. You've been appointed. You've been set apart. And none of that is up for debate. You don't have to keep reinventing yourself to be loved. You don't have to keep hustling to prove that you belong. You already belong. You already matter. You already carry the mark of heaven on your life. You already have something sacred inside of you. The goal isn't to become someone else, it's to come home to yourself, to return to the truth of who you've always been underneath the layers of trauma, expectation, and fear. There's nothing wrong with who you are, you just have to stop negotiating with people who don't see the vision. Healing is your responsibility, not their apology. That statement alone can change your life if you let it. Because so many of us are holding our healing hostage to someone else's remorse. We're waiting for the apology, the explanation, the acknowledgement that what was done to us wasn't right. We think that if they just say sorry, if they just admit they were wrong, then maybe we'll finally be free. But what if they never say it? What if they never acknowledge the pain they caused? What if they keep living like it never happened? Does that mean you stay broken forever? Does that mean your wholeness is denied because someone else refuses to take responsibility? That's too high a price to pay for freedom. That's too much power to give to people who already wounded you. The truth is, healing is not about them. It's about you. It's about reclaiming the pieces of yourself that trauma tried to steal. It's about choosing to no longer let what they did dictate how you live. And that's not easy, because sometimes the pain is deep. Sometimes the wound still bleeds. Sometimes the memory is so loud it echoes in your body, even when your mind tries to forget. But even in that, you have a choice to carry it or a choice to confront it, a choice to pretend it didn't shape you or a choice to break the agreement it tried to make with your future. There's a part of us that believes closure comes from the one who caused the chaos, that if they could just understand what they did, if they could just feel what we felt, then maybe the pain would make sense. But closure doesn't always come through conversation. Sometimes closure comes through a decision to say, I choose me. I choose peace. I choose to let go, not because they deserve forgiveness, but because I deserve freedom. When you wait for an apology to begin your healing, you put your soul on pause. You suspend your restoration, hoping for something that might never come. But healing is not a group project. It's an inside job. It's you and God. It's you and truth. It's you and the work. And healing is work. It's not a light switch you flip. It's not a one-time event. It's a journey, a process, a series of choices that often feel like walking uphill in the dark. It means sitting with pain instead of running from it. It means unpacking the grief you buried. It means questioning the beliefs you built around your wounds. It means challenging the inner critic that echoes the voice of your oppressor. It means forgiving yourself for what you did to survive, because survival is messy. Sometimes you became what hurt you. Sometimes you hurt others while trying to protect yourself. Sometimes you silenced your truth just to feel safe, but grace meets you there. Grace says you can start again. You can heal. You are not your past. Waiting for someone else to validate your pain keeps you in bondage because some people will never admit what they did. Some people are so disconnected from their own truth that they cannot handle yours. Some people don't see the damage they caused, not because it wasn't real, but because accountability threatens the image they've created for themselves. And if you tie your healing to their maturity, you'll always come up short. So instead, you take your power back. You acknowledge the hurt, you name it, you grieve it, you let yourself feel the anger, the sadness, the betrayal, and then you begin the sacred work of detaching your identity from your trauma. You are not what happened to you. You are not the version of yourself that was born from pain. That version served a purpose, it kept you alive, but it doesn't have to lead your future. Healing allows you to make room for who you are always meant to be. It allows you to love yourself in places where shame used to live. It allows you to rebuild trust with your own intuition, to hear your own voice clearly again. Because trauma doesn't just break your heart, it breaks your connection to yourself. And healing is the journey of returning to your center, returning to your truth, returning to a place where you don't have to prove your worth because you know it's already established. People will tell you to just let it go. They'll tell you to move on, to stop holding on to the past. But what they don't understand is that letting go doesn't mean pretending it didn't hurt. It means releasing the grip it has on your today. It means refusing to let yesterday's pain dictate tomorrow's joy. It means no longer reenacting the trauma in your thoughts, your relationships, your choices. Letting go is not about ignoring the impact. It's about refusing to be imprisoned by it. You don't need their apology to heal because your healing is not conditional. It is yours by right. It is your divine inheritance. You are created to be whole, not fractured. You're created to rise, not remain in the rubble of what was done to you. The enemy wants you to believe that you are too far gone, too broken, too damaged to be restored. But restoration is what God does best. He takes the shattered pieces and makes them holy. He turns scars into stories. He turns pain into purpose. But you have to be willing to release the need for revenge. You have to let go of the fantasy where they finally understand what they did and beg for your forgiveness. Because the truth is, they might never change, but you can. You can rise. You can heal. You can become whole without them ever acknowledging the role they played. And sometimes the healing is slow. Sometimes it comes in waves. One day you're fine, the next you're triggered. One moment you feel free, the next you're drowning in memories. That doesn't mean you're failing, it means you're human. It means the wound was deep and you're learning how to live without bleeding all over everything. Be gentle with yourself. Give yourself grace. Healing isn't linear. It's messy and holy and sacred and hard. But every step you take is a victory. Every moment you choose healing over bitterness, you're breaking generational chains. Every time you choose love over fear, you're rewriting your story. You are not powerless. You are not at the mercy of what happened to you. You are not sentenced to live your life in reaction to someone else's brokenness. You get to decide what happens next. You get to choose healing, even if the apology never comes. You get to become the version of yourself that your younger self prayed for. You get to rise from the ashes without asking permission. Because your healing doesn't need their validation. It only needs your commitment. You can't pour from an empty cup, but that doesn't stop so many of us from trying. We keep giving and giving, hoping someone will see the exhaustion behind our smile, hoping someone will notice the weight we carry in silence, hoping someone will finally say, you don't have to be everything for everyone. But when you're used to being the strong one, when you've always been the one others lean on, asking for help feels foreign. Slowing down feels like failure. Rest feels like weakness. So you keep running on fumes, performing strength while your soul is begging for a moment to just breathe. The truth is, you deserve the same love you keep trying to give away. You deserve the softness you extend to others. You deserve the compassion you hand out so freely. But somewhere along the way, you learned that your worth was connected to your ability to produce, to fix, to save, to perform. So you became everything for everybody, even if it meant becoming nothing for yourself. And that's not love. That's self-abandonment. That's what happens when you confuse love with sacrifice and call it loyalty. That's what happens when you start believing that showing up for others is more important than showing up for yourself. Loving yourself is not selfish, it's essential. It's not optional, it's not a luxury, it's a necessity. Because if you don't love you, truly love you, then every relationship in your life will be filtered through lack of boundaries, lack of identity, lack of self-worth. And when you operate from lack, you'll accept crumbs and call it a feast. You'll mistake control for care. You'll chase people who validate your wounds instead of healing them. But when you love yourself, you raise the standard. You stop auditioning for spaces that were never built to hold your authenticity. You stop explaining why you need time, space, and rest. You stop apologizing for protecting your peace. There's a difference between being kind and being codependent. There's a difference between being loving and being a doormat. Loving yourself means learning how to say no without guilt. It means walking away from what no longer serves your growth. It means recognizing when your spirit is depleted and choosing to replenish instead of perform. But that's hard when you've been conditioned to believe that you are only as good as what you do for others. That's hard when your identity has been wrapped in people-pleasing. That's hard when the fear of disappointing someone else has made you a stranger to your own needs. Self-love is not a destination. It's a daily decision. It's waking up and choosing to affirm yourself even when the world is silent. It's choosing to nourish your body, honor your emotions, listen to your intuition. It's choosing to forgive yourself for what you didn't know then and choosing to grow from it now. It's not always pretty. Sometimes it looks like setting boundaries that make other people uncomfortable. Sometimes it looks like sitting alone with your truth when you'd rather be distracted. Sometimes it looks like not showing up to the event, not answering the phone, not saying yes just because it's expected. And the more you love yourself, the more you start to heal what you once tolerated. You look back at versions of yourself that begged for love, that chased after validation, that settled for less, and instead of judging her, you hold her. You thank her. You remind her that she did the best she could with what she had. That's what love does. It doesn't shame the past, it redeems it. It doesn't dwell in regret, it learns and evolves. You begin to realize that self-love is a form of legacy work. When you choose yourself, you're not just healing for today, you're healing for every generation that comes after you. You don't have to earn rest. You don't have to prove you're worthy of kindness. You don't need permission to prioritize your well-being. You don't have to justify your boundaries. The very fact that you are breathing, that you are human, that you carry the breath of the divine within you, that is reason enough. Your existence is enough. And if you've been living a life where your worth is tied to your performance, it's time to rewrite the script. It's time to remember that rest is resistance, that joy is your birthright, that peace is not a luxury for the privileged. It's a necessity for the soul. When you start loving yourself, you stop settling. You stop making excuses for other people's mistreatment. You stop staying in places that celebrate your silence. You begin to choose environments that reflect your value. You begin to seek out relationships that are mutual, that are life-giving, that are rooted in truth. And you begin to walk like someone who knows they're loved, even when no one is clapping. You begin to glow from a place within, not because everything's perfect, but because you finally decided to treat yourself with the same reverence you've always given to others. And it's not about being perfect, it's about being present. It's about meeting yourself where you are with honesty and grace. Some days loving yourself looks like facing your flaws and committing to growth. Other days it looks like resting and doing absolutely nothing without guilt. Some days it looks like crying until the pain softens. Other days, it looks like laughing until your soul remembers the sound of joy. There's no one way to do it. It's no right or wrong rhythm, but it has to be consistent because the world is loud, the pressure is real, and the temptation to forget yourself is constant. You have to be intentional. You have to keep choosing you even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, because the world will keep trying to pull you away from yourself. It will keep telling you who to be, how to feel, what to want. But when you're anchored in self-love, you return to yourself again and again. You come back home to your own heart. You listen to your own voice. You trust your own pace. And that kind of alignment is powerful. That kind of wholeness is rare. That kind of love is revolutionary. You become the safe place you've always searched for in others. You become the peace you once prayed someone else would bring. You become the love that heals not just yourself, but everyone connected to you. Because love, when rooted in truth, overflows. When you love yourself well, you love others better. From overflow, not obligation, from fullness, not performance. And that love transforms everything. It shifts the atmosphere, it makes room for miracles. It opens doors you didn't even know existed, because love is magnetic. And when you start loving you, the world around you has no choice but to respond.